The world is trying to offer success in so many ways. And I just want us to think about, what is true success? What does it look like on a way that we can know if we walk with God, we can be successful? So we're going to look at that first. And I want to start out by just saying, what is your definition of success? Like, let's start with something fairly simple, this conference, this gathering. When you're on your way home, people are going to ask you at some point, how was the conference, or how did it go? And your answer is going to be tied or anchored to, what were your expectations? What did you come in here expecting or wanting, and what happened? So success is tied to our expectations. And I would write down now in your journal, what would make this conference, this gathering, a success for you? When people ask, what would cause you to say, oh yeah, this was really good, or really what I needed, or I really met God there? Whatever your desires are, write that down, because if it hasn't happened yet, I'd love to see it happen before the time you leave. But it's important to name it. And then a bigger question to write down is, what would you say your life was a success if? My life, however long I have on this side, is a success if. And tie that in some way, try to just tap into, what are your dreams? What are your hopes? What are your desires? And it can change, but it's good to at least put that down on paper. Now, the next question is, how sure are you, and I'm talking about your desires for your life, how sure are you that you'll attain those goals? How sure do you feel that those will happen? Because when we're not sure, there's a lot of tension and stress and anxiety that can come in. And I mean, I've worked with, hundreds of authors, and sometimes the stress would be, I'm in the middle of writing this book, and I'm afraid I'm going to die before I finish the book. Like this project, or this movie, or this screenplay, or whatever it is, the artist was concerned, I don't want something to happen before this is fully birthed. While the statue is still half marble, I don't want my time to be over. For other people, it's a family legacy, or it's seeing their spouse or their children or their friends through certain things. But the question is, what is it for you, and how sure are you that you'll attain the goal? What happens if the thing that you most want to see success in does not happen? You don't have to answer these now, but just write the questions at least down now. Here's a guarantee. The enemy will always try to change your definition of success. And so, be careful, because if your goal of success, when you're in near achievement of it, if it shifts and then shifts and then shifts, I would say that's not a good cycle. That's a cycle toward unfulfillment and restlessness. So the enemy can change it if you're not watching, and you can get sucked into that if you're not careful. When is enough enough? When is it fine if you actually ended up doing less of something the next time? Or you downsized, or you learned to do with less in the things that you like. I do believe the kingdom is a kingdom of abundance, but I also think there's something beautiful about contentedness in what we love. Now, another question is, what if success doesn't happen according to your expectations? What if you just want a few things, and those few things aren't present right now and don't appear to be in the next few years? They may, but they don't appear to be. what happens then? I'm asking more questions than giving answers because this is really something on the first part that I want you and God to spend a little time in. Or here's an even trickier question. What if success comes 100 years from now? The book that you write, the art that you have, the song that you wrote, the idea that you wanted to give birth to, what if it doesn't happen even in your lifetime? What if it's discovered long after you've entered the kingdom? How would that feel? For your whole life, for what you love to do, to go unappreciated, unnoticed, unwanted, but then know, well, but in 100, 150 years, people are going to think it's pretty cool. If we're on God's timetable, we're okay with that. So the things you love, even if you don't see fruition here, you will. You will. But you may see more here than you think. But in the kingdom, the story continues. It's not a whole different story where we're standing around in the clouds. We actually do things, and we're created to do what we love. And God ushers us even deeper into that identity and that calling in the kingdom. So we get a taste of it now. Imagine your gifting that you have now when you are totally wholehearted, when you have no sin, no fallen issues, no temptations, and you're pursuing the gifting fully. That's pretty exciting. So we get that, but we also get a lot here. Success isn't the applause of people right now. It's doing what you love to do with God. And ripple effects could be huge. Could be huge. You may not see those ripple effects. So just know there's got to be a better definition of success than immediacy. It's dangerous to base success on any external metric. It really is. Because if you base it on comparison of a bestseller list, if you base it on number of items sold, if you base it on number of dollars in the bank account, if you base it on number of people who tell you you're great, whatever you base it on that's external, those things change and shift. And then what? Then who are you? Because if you've given all those things, the numbers power to validate you. You give those things and people power to invalidate you. And so if that's what success is based on, you know, a lot of times really famous, well-known people, when they all of a sudden are not in demand, you see a lot of suicides in different fields. And I think it's because they just don't know who they are anymore. Right. And everything that brought life or meaning was tied externally. So when the next new thing happens, they implode. But what if we shift our view of success to something really different? What if we base it on how we pursue what we do rather than the outcome? This is so counterintuitive to how the world is. What if we base success on how we pursue what we're doing, not the outcome? What's cool about this is, if we base our definition of success on simply pursuing your dream or your gift or your calling or your talent with God, that's how. You're pursuing it how? With God. Success is achieved before there's ever an outcome. The success is in how you did it, how you walked with God. That's some of the highest praise we find in Scripture when people say it was a man, woman who walked with God. The heroes in the Bible and the Heroes Hall of Fame, they did certain things, but they were there because they did it with God. They weren't just there because of their own brilliance or strength, or it was because of their faith in God, how they walked with God through the fire, how they trusted God. So that definition of success, I think, is really big because all of a sudden outcomes are taken out of the equation. You don't have to wonder if you'll be successful finally in a year when this comes together or not. Your success is the journey. Your success isn't the destination, it's the journey. The journey was with God. It's so freeing because then you can watch what happens with what you created, what you brought into existence without the striving or the stress. I did this with God. Now the outcome, we'll see what God has planned. But the success is the how. A quote from the book that the book revolves a lot around, the story of what has a lot of food references in it. Yeah. And so the quote here, create with the Creator and serve your art to the hungry. If others don't like it, that doesn't invalidate the dish. It just provides them a chance to create rather than critique. We live in a world that loves to critique. Facebook, social media, everybody critiques everything. And the problem is, you can critique without creating anything. So my invitation to people is, rather than critique what somebody else has done, whether that's a movie or a restaurant, whether that's a book or a piece of art, or whether that's a business or a building, like go do your own. If you think you can do it better, it's not a contest. It's just if you have a different way to see it, go do it. But spend your time creating, not critiquing. And if there's a message that stirs your heart that you don't find in that film or that movie, or you wish they had done something different, go make that film. Awesome. That's a great invitation. But don't critique. With that new definition of success, I just want to pause and ask you to notice the effect on your heart. Does it feel more hopeful to see success that way? It's how you're doing it, not what the outcome is. Because I hope it is more freeing, because we can't control the outcome. We can't control when we tell our kids something, if our kids do it or not, but we know if we walked well in the process of giving them that information. We can't control that of how they respond, but we can control how we go about the process with integrity, with intimacy, in our identity. So it should feel like a 50-pound backpack of rocks is just kind of taken off you. Because now it's just, how are you walking in the process? Watch God for the outcome. I want to talk to you about a concept of how we approach what we love to do. So when I say stepping into your story's sacred circle, I mean your story is in your life, your mission. And a sacred circle, you're going to want to draw this probably on a page, so I'd get a blank page. But a sacred circle is the rhythm and focus of your creativity, your dreams, what you feel called to do. Think of it as a bullseye, okay? So it matters not only what we're aiming at, but also the importance of each of the color bands. I'll show you what I mean. There's the bullseye. So this is what we're aiming at, okay? Now, in the center is width. That's how we do what we do. It's where we start. It's the beginning of everything, and it's with God. We find our meaning, our identity, our place, and we pursue it with Him. So that's the inner circle, that's the sweet spot. Now the blue circle, that's trusted Bohemians. Okay? The next ring are people like the people in this room right now. People who you can celebrate your calling, your art, your creativity with God. That's the next primary sweet spot or circle, and you do it with them. The next one is the hungry audience, and I use hungry because it's people who are hungering for more, hungering for what you have to create, what you bring to the atmosphere. We're gonna unpack it once it's all together a little more. But the fourth circle is what I would call, it's distraction, it's reaction, it's kind of the toxic circle. It's social media, it's the industry and what they say you should do or not do, what others are saying you should do or not do, the world telling you who you are. Now, here's the interesting thing about this. Most creative people in the world, instead of starting in the middle on with, they start on the outside circle. Reactions. Tell me who I am and tell me what you want. Tell me what you want and I'll do it. I used to have authors that would send me proposals in 5 or 6 different genres of story. And they'd say, here's a Western, here's a sci-fi, here's a romance. You just tell me what you want and I'll write it. They thought they were making themselves more accessible, increasing their chances. It actually was doing the opposite because there was no focus, there was no passion. They just wanted to know what I wanted. What I wanted was an author who would only write one thing and would rather die than write something else. I wanted that passion. So the world starts with reaction, and then they serve it to the audience, and then they hope there's some people that they know that will embrace it as allies or as close in the close circle. But by the time they get to the middle, the bullseye, it's no longer with, it's hollow, it's empty, because they did everything without God. And then they get to that middle point and they say, God, will you bless this? Or God, will you help me with this? I really need this to work. And it's been totally backwards. The middle that we start with is presence, and it goes to productivity. The model of most of the world starts with productivity, efficiency, and tries to go into presence. But it doesn't work backwards. The bullseye of with has to be started with, because you can't incorporate intimacy and eternal sparks of creativity into something on the back end. What we're doing is we're in that blue circle right now in this room, in this gathering. We're focused on the middle circle and we're doing it in the blue circle. And then when everybody leaves here, whatever your passion and creativity is, how you pursue that is going to be for that hungry audience, the people that need what you've been called to bring into the world. But you're not doing it based on what they're telling you they want. You're doing it based on intimacy with God and letting it spill into their world. And they're not validating or invalidating you. It's a big difference which way you approach it. So let's talk about that blue circle, living in Bohemian fellowship. The dictionary defines a Bohemian as an artist who lives and acts free of regard for conventional rules and practices. And when I read that, I fell in love with the word Bohemian. I mean, it's a cool word already, but to say, yes, I'm creative, I'm an artist, I have a calling, I have a specific desire to bring something here into the world in my unique style, but man-made rules, industry standards that are just technical jargon and hoops to jump through, I'm not really into that. So I'm going to create with God for the hungry that need that and want that. And that's what I see as a bohemian, is somebody who's wildly passionate about God, wildly creative, and doing so in freedom. You know, bohemian gathering places, to me, that's where we live and create with God and with others rather than alone. It's us, once we've understood what it means to create with God, to then understand what it means to come alongside others in the creative process, in our gifting. There's a friend of mine who is a writer, and we were talking back when I was writing my book, and I wasn't quite done with it. And she had permission, like she was a close friend, and so she could just shoot straight. And we were talking about the story. And my comment to her was, well, I feel like I've got the story pretty much done, but I don't know now how I'm going to make all the rest come together. Like I just don't know how I'm going to promote the book or how I'm going to get the book out there, because I'm going to self-publish it, and I'm not sure how to design a website. I'm not sure how to do these other things or get endorsements maybe. And she just looked at me and she said, Alan, you are really good on the with God part, but you really stink at the with others part. Like you have all these people that would want to help you and come alongside you, and you're still in this orphan mindset when it comes to others, that you have to pay for everything or you have to earn it, or if somebody helps you, you have to immediately even it up and do something for them. And it really was a light that she was able to be shined on a dark spot, the blind spot for me, which was, yeah, like I've been so focused on how to do life with God, I haven't really focused enough and realized there's others who I can celebrate this with and who I can join in with. And I hadn't written the part at that point in the book about the final rooftop scene. And it became a very different scene after that, because Mia's journey wasn't just then at that point about finding her father, it was about finding a fellowship. And my invitation to you is, with God is central, it's critical, and He's called us to do it with others. And the more we try to do it in isolation, the more that we ultimately lose heart, because we weren't meant to just do life us and God. We need a small group of others. The group of others I'm talking about is not people that you are leading or ministering to or carrying. I'm talking about people who have their own strength, who come alongside you. You're not trying to fix them. They're not broken. They're not a project. They are an ally. They celebrate with you. They pull you down to earth when you get, a little too high on what you're doing on yourself. And they also lift you up when you start to feel like it's not worth anything. They do both. They are an ally in your dreams. And you don't need a ton, but you need a few of those people. And a lot of times the people that walk with God the most start trying to help others so much that they don't have that group around them that they can just celebrate and enjoy and be poured into. So that's what I mean by a Bohemian fellowship. We need God, and we need those other wild Bohemians. So success is simply with. Are you doing what you are called to do? What makes you come alive with God? If you start there, it's amazing how not only will your creativity enhance, but your life, your family, your love. Because the best way to be, in my opinion, to be a husband is to learn how to be a son of God. The best way to be a father, learn how to be a son of God. Best way to be a mom, learn how to be a daughter of God. Best way to be a wife, learn how to be a daughter of God. It starts there. It starts there and it overflows. Now, I want to read to you a part in the book called Creative Fellowship. This is toward the end, but it's not the end, it's toward it. And it's when Mia had gotten to the rooftop. And I just say here, Mia spent her entire life believing she was all on her own. Then she entered a truer story and realized she had never been alone. God was always with her. On the rooftop, she stepped into another awakening. The knowledge that our story grows even richer with the presence of others. Mia got her first taste of this in Chef Gino's kitchen. Now she has encountered a rooftop filled with others who hunger and thirst for more. Bohemians, according to one dictionary definition, are those who live free of conventional rules and the man-made rules that limit one's creativity. The only one with unlimited creativity is God. Those at the rooftop gathering understand that we need a relationship with God and we need a relationship with others. One without the other is less than what we were created for. That's why Scripture tells us loving God and loving others are the highest priorities of our lives. On a practical level, your creativity will soar when you surround yourself with a small fellowship of like-minded bohemians from a variety of backgrounds. There's incredible ideation and energy that occurs when songwriters mingle with chefs, architects gather with poets, and teachers share a meal with storytellers. A community is formed that doesn't compete, but that feeds off one another and helps dreams fly higher. I'm talking about a small fellowship of friends who, depending on the moment, have permission to lift you up or pull you back down to earth. You need a group like that, and they need you, because there's more to your story than you and God. There's also you and others. That's what we're getting to do this weekend. That's what we're getting to do here.